Надо потише сделать. Привет. Всем привет. Конечно, надо посмотреть анонс. Куда ж без него? Да нет, играть... хватит уже играть. Играть будем в новой лиге. Сейчас надо посмотреть, что нам несет грядущее обновление. И, я так понимаю, разработать план ураган по билду на МФ. Я, конечно, не ожидал, что вы такую подставу мне учините. Ну что ж теперь делать? МФ так МФ. Будет в конце концов чем заняться. Големы, конечно, тоже хороший билдецкий. Но, значит, не судьба. Крылья где здесь? В траве не дадут. На Твиче дадут. Прям даже не знаю, такое ожидание от этой 3.20. Каланды, правда, тоже ожидания были, дай боже. Более того, анонс как будто бы эти ожидания еще и усилил. Вот это будет лига. А что-то в итоге получилось так себе. Но один архнемезис чего стоит. Все убрали нашу жопоболь главную. Что-то они, правда, так лихо ее вырезали. Это меня больше всего, конечно, интересует. Что если... Блин, их так послушать. Все, мы убрали архнемезис. И теперь что, мобы будут слабее в 10 раз? То было у них там типа того 25-30 свойств. А теперь будет 5, ну или там 7. Это, извините, вообще, ну я говорю, даже в 10, если не больше раз ослабляет мобов. Не знаю, ТНГ, что к ним готовиться. Я давно уже завязал с этими НГ, сколько можно. QIWI, привет. О, ничего себе. Ну, поздравляю, поздравляю. А почему F-то? Я не знаю, я вот тоже тут целюсь. Кстати, MF билд, может быть, меня подтолкнет к покупке все-таки нового компа, потому что там же по жести надо мобов на карте увеличивать количество. Гоги, слушай, ну там на стартовые-то предметы были ссылки в калькуляторе. Ну, вообще, формат билдов-то, конечно, есть чем дополнить, есть как улучшить. Пока не готов я за это взяться, но мысли есть по этому поводу. Как поудобнее это сделать. А ты где покупал-то, Дима? В каких-то наших магазах или где заказывал? Всякие там малики через друзей или еще где? Да, машинку, конечно, новую хочется, сил нет. Прямо я уже 2 или 3 раза начинал ее собирать. Но, конечно, сумма меня пугает. Ну не, ну вот Салик, я говорю, тоже мне стрёмно такие вещи. Понятно, что там дешевле. Но, блин, это не те вещи, которые с Салика можно брать. Так-то, в принципе, все в магазах есть. Я смотрел, ну, подороже, конечно. Ну, хотя, что значит подороже? Подороже, чем в Китае, понятное дело, что подороже. Ну, а у нас оно стоит столько, сколько стоит. Алекс, привет. Ну, да, вот тоже говорят, что у всех норм. Я, честно говоря, один раз, по-моему, только слышал, что это еще в момент, когда был компьютер Universe, ну, то есть он и сейчас есть наверняка, когда там все покупали. Ну, вот там у кого-то у одного была проблема гарантийная. Ну, и то как проблема, просто мать пришла вроде как мертвая. Пришлось отправлять обратно. И вроде как там даже все хорошо закончилось, потому как никто особо не отнекивался от гарантийных обязательств, просто очень долго все это дело. Ну и отправка туда за свой счет, тоже такие нюансы. Ну понятно, что это далеко не каждый раз происходит. Так, ну что, давайте рассказывайте, кто там на чем у нас стартует. Меня-то понятно, вы уже под монастырь МФ подвели. Время там, конечно, жесть. Ну я тут вот тоже телефон купил родителям 2. Считай, что на Алике тоже там. Хоть и на Яндике, но одна фигня. Китайские телефоны даже не сертифицированные. Ничего, нормально. Просто телефон-то тоже. Телефон это телефон. Он идет в коробке там со всеми прибабахами. А вот проц, как и мать, блин, мать же здоровая и нежная. Проц тоже. Как его, блин, покупать-то? Ну, в общем, это, конечно, скорее дело привычки. Отлично. Ну и бывает тоже можно и поузнуть. Одну лишку пропустить-то хуже не будет. Заходи на стримы, хватит тебе, наверное, отпоя ощущений. Да, какая разница, на себе, не на себе. В любом случае мне ж принесут, если проблемы будут. Там просто и суммы как-то ощутимее. И в том плане, что, грубо говоря, в магазе там 10 тысяч, а в интернете 7 тысяч. Это, извини меня, заметная разница. А когда там 30 тысяч или 28, мало того, что 7 тысяч это уже не так проблемно подвесить в плане решения вопросов на месяц. Даже на крайняк, если они потеряются, это не 30 и не 50 тысяч. Ну, я и говорю, и шансов все-таки, что телефон в коробке будет битый, но там совсем мало. Ну вот да, это как-то насчет здесь у агрегаторов Алика, грубо говоря, которые там много всего затаривают. Ну, у меня этот вопрос не стоит, я через знакомых буду, скорее всего, из Китая заказывать, поэтому это я так, чтобы быть в курсе событий, как что там народ покупает, какие отзывы, мало ли что. Тому, как я говорю, придется, наверное, брать компик новый. Это уже тяжело тащит стрим с поешкой, если какие-то там движухи происходят, а там постоянно происходят, если нормально мазать карты. Я тут все думал по поводу билдов, что про голема, что про МФера. Думаю, блин, как же я аж без родного КВДТ, который все подряд может фармить. Ну, голем, кстати, тоже более-менее может все подряд фармить. А вот МФ, конечно, это чисто МФ. Ну ладно, что, посмотрим. Смогу ли я? Могу ли я? Хочу ли я? Могу ли я? И так далее. Ну ТФТ и мефить это вообще, блин, золотое дно. Самое главное, что делать вообще ничего не надо. Сидишь. Это я в Еву так играл. Ну, я много к ней подходов тоже имел. Сейчас все очень хочется тоже зайти поиграть. И такого там персиков качал. Ну, в основном бегал миссии. Летал в смысле. Потом думаю, дай-ка я себе сделаю этого. Мне копать там очень нравилось. Дай-ка, думаю, сделаю себе производство и торговлю. Ну и в общем, как обычно. Как это, слово за слово. Через там какие-то несколько месяцев уже движуха развернулась такая, что все предыдущие шевеления в плане заработка или еще чего-то Не то, что рядом не стояли, а просто даже, как это сказать, настолько мизерные были все вот эти там по сравнению с производством и торговлей. А самое главное, что все не выходя практически из дока. Иногда там куда-нибудь слетать, материалов привезти раз в месяц. Так что, да, ТФТ рулит. 40к без видюхи. Слушай, ну это что-то вообще дешево. 40к без видюхи. Это прям бюджетненько. А 12400 это что у нас? Пятый или третий? Пятый даже ты взял? Или третий? Что-то прям хорошо так 40к-то. Блин, я что-то обзор, как обычно, посмотрел. Ну, как не обзор, там тесты, сравнения, они еще. Там новое поколение, ну прям вообще сильная разница в производительности. Не знаю. Я уж тоже тебе думал взять, блин, предыдущее какое-нибудь не топовое. Потому что топовое, как обычно, дорогое. Надо уже следующего дождаться и тогда взять то, которое сейчас топовое, уже не топовое. Тогда будет, наверное, нормально. Ну, с одной стороны, да, DDR4, DDR5 сейчас минимальная разница в производительности, но, кстати, и в цене заметная. То есть она, да, и особо не дает прироста, и дороже стоит. Но, по факту никогда особо не стоит топовые решения покупать. Они никогда не стоят своих денег в сочетании цена-качество. Ну, сотка, да, сотка всегда и была. Средний комп. Ну, там потом, когда эти скачки начались, там не в сотке. $1000. Не сотку. $1000. Без видяхи. Тут в рублях-то компьютеры считать это не совсем верно. С другой стороны, у меня настолько уже старенький мой старичок боевой, что не купи, все будет лучше. Поэтому можно и за 40. А при чем здесь сураины? Нет, просто изначально это все же стоит в долларах, поэтому говоришь 100к. Сегодня 100к, завтра 120к. И все так тоже. Я же просто с компами-то последние 15 лет плотно общаюсь. Ну, в плане того, что это моя работа. И все там, подорожали там компы, ноутбуки. Я говорю, ничего не подорожало. Нет, дело не в том, что я в баксах считаю. Просто я вот рассказываю, говорю, что все говорят, вот компы подорожали, там ноуты подорожали. Я говорю, слушайте, они не подорожали, я вот 15 там почти лет работаю в этой сфере, они как стоили свои ниши, там, грубо говоря, минимальный там компьютер, ну, $300, там средний 500, уже игровой 1000. Как это было 15 лет назад, так сейчас это и стоит. 300, 500, 1000. Как ноутбук стоил минимальный там для работы $500, хороший 1000, так и сейчас стоит. Минимальный 500, хороший 1000. Ничего не изменилось. Как оно вот шло на протяжении последних 15 лет. Так оно ничего не поменялось. А в рублях цены там скакали, соответственно, ну просто в 3 раза можно, да, там плюс-минус туда-сюда. Поэтому и говорю, что ничего не изменилось, ничего не подорожало, как оно стоило, так оно и стоит. Именно поэтому и говорю про доллары. И исходя из сегодняшней ситуации то же самое. Что сегодня он стоит 100 тысяч, завтра может стоить 50, а может 200. Хрен его разберет. Ну да, иногда обновляться. Да у меня что-то вообще тут интернетом чудеса творятся. Я уж не знаю. Походу Ростелеком что-то дурит, потому что в одно время вечером просто начинается какой-то беспредел, и я пытался с техподдержкой пообщаться, а она наглухо вообще, ну, сразу, то есть понятно, как это обычно. Отвалился интернет, звонишь в техподдержку, если занято, значит проблема у провайдера, а не у тебя. Привет, Виталий. Ну, переводить, что там переводить-то? Я думаю, что там все будет понятно. Ну, переводить-то я, конечно, могу, просто синхронистом я, естественно, не работал. Если я начну бубнить в параллель, то я начну терять сам суть, и вы тоже ничего не поймете. Но основные моменты, конечно, я, если будет что-то интересное, озвучу. Что это за ноут за 3К рублей, еще и сенсорный? Там экран один дороже стоит. Интересно, что нам все-таки расскажут про Архимедис? Вот больше всего меня интересует. То, что они, конечно, с дропом типа обещали, но это как и новая, абсолютно неизведанная хрень. Мы все переделали, все будет отлично. Правда, никто не знает, как это будет работать. Будет, конечно, интересно. А, вы, кстати, не знаю, видели, нет? Ну, точно, все-то точно не видели. Хотя стример-то наш был, он какой-то, может, и американский, но русскоговорящий. Я что-то, честно говоря, забыл. Он рассказывал, что тесты, ну, тестеры там активно фигачат и много чего исправляют. То есть, типа того, что они тестируют все это дело, но опять-таки, я говорю, слишком мало времени, слишком много изменений, работы до хрена, и не протестируешь все, и не поправишь все. Ну, в общем, прикольно, за 3000. Ну, это что-то не знаю. Так что, в общем, это я к тому, что обвинения, можно сказать, не то, что, конечно, беспочвенные, немножко. Ну да, вот то, что они начали резать что-то классы, это вообще мне непонятно. Но Причем, да, они явно такие режут пассивки восхождения, которые именно и давали этому классу, ну, теперь уже этим классом, какую-то там уникальность. Да, сейчас порежут щиты там, да, и ауры у деда. Не знаю, там что. Давайте уберем заряды выносливости у Джаги. Ну да, только я говорю, к чему это все? То получим в итоге, ну, более-менее понятно. Плюс-минус все одинаковое. Зачем? Ну, не совсем понятно. Вроде все хорошо в этом плане. Играй за кого хочешь, строй что хочешь. Чтобы проще было балансировать, что у всех все одинаковое, не знаю. Да нет, Поя, конечно, никто и не пытается. Это уже всем очевидно, что Поя испытательный полигон для Поя 2. Не все понимают прекрасно, да, что ждать от него чудес не надо. Да и они открыто даже говорят, что мы основные усилия прикладываем к Поя 2. Да ну, ради бога, быстрее бы вышло. Бабах, что-то происходит. Что они нам решили показать. Ну, такая традиция у них. Гонять его по оврагам. Мне нравится, когда они показывают скиллы, вот эти мувики всякие. И цифры все убраны. То есть выглядит красиво, но цифр-то никаких нет. То есть что это такое? Где он бегает? А, вон, сейчас 4700 показали, да? Что он там пробегает карту первую или вообще по сюжетке бегает в фулл обвесе. Черт поймешь. Ну да, там белые мобы, боссы без накрученных приглашений, всякое такое. О, нормально, он там босса ваншотом, прикольно. Мерзость какая. Ну, это вот все, конечно, все эти недоделки, непонятки, это от нехватки ресурсов. Люди делают что-то, да, какая-то задумка, может, и хорошая, но никто не пытается или не особо думает, как это все будет сочетаться с тем, что уже есть. Потом внезапно оказывается, что, о, блин, получается полный беспредел либо в одну сторону, либо в другую. Точно так же, как вот простой пример с конвертацией дропа из реликтовых скоробеев. Ну, то есть никто же ими никогда не пользовался. И тут получается, что этот множитель какой-то, ну, мультипликативный, да, как считается. То есть не аддитивный, не добавляется, а перемножается, и получается дичайшая просто там редкость у дропа. Поэтому что они это не знали, не проверили, забыли вообще, что есть такие скоробеи, которые увеличивают, блин, количество редких предметов, потому что никто ими не пользовался никогда. И тут попробовали, и оказалось, что очень эффективно работают. Акшай, Вардзлуп. А что такое Акшай? Какой-то блинкер, убийца. Но вот это вот все несерьезно. Это прыгать по каждой пачке, это вообще забей. Так погромче надо сделать.
For today's live stream as we reveal our upcoming expansion, The Forbidden Sanctum, which launches on December 9th on PC and Mac and on December 14th on console. Twitch drops are enabled on today's live stream, so make sure you follow the instructions below in order to claim your Bloodguard wings. Here's what you can expect from today's live stream. We'll start by debuting the trailer for The Forbidden Sanctum, and we'll then do a deep dive on the League itself. We'll cover this expansion's new endgame revamps and content, and then we'll have a look at all the new skills we're introducing. We'll then reveal some new unique items and the massive buffs and rarity adjustments we have made to a variety of endgame unique weapons. We'll then briefly cover some balance topics we have posted articles about recently, jewels, curses, and the replacement of the arch-nemesis monster mod system. Finally, we'll discuss the upcoming release of the optional Ruthless game mode before touching on some quality of life improvements and the new supporter packs. The livestream concludes with a Q&A session between Ziggy D and me, where we'll answer questions from Twitch chat. Then we'll drop the full patch notes. Let's get started with a trailer for The Forbidden Sanctum, which launches in 1 week.
Ну давай,
Many have met their fate here in the shade of Fell Shrine. So step lightly. But here you are bound by new rules. My rules. Each step with gold to tempt you. A foe to wound you. A curse to spite you. But do not give up, for vast riches await the bold. Pillage this sanctum if you must. And one day you may uncover its secrets.
круто. Туда рубиться. Нифига там, блин. Уровень поменяли. Ну вот опять-таки прям интригующая механика. Как бы не получилось, как с Каландрой.
The Forbidden Sanctum is an old Templar enclave, long rumored to be hidden beneath the Fellshrine ruins. Abandoned for a long time, it is now controlled by a malevolent entity. In this league, you'll explore it, find out its secrets, and deal with the evil that lurks there. The Sanctum Challenge League is a roguelike game, played out one room at a time as you explore Rayclast and the Atlas in Path of Exile. In every area or map you enter, you can make a choice of which room in the Sanctum you will explore next. On the Sanctum map, you can see the contents of a few rooms ahead, enabling you to plot a path through its dangerous halls. And the Sanctum is dangerous. Like most roguelikes, you should not expect to be able to complete it on your first try. Getting to the deeper floors requires experience, knowledge, and luck. You should expect that your early attempts will fail, but over time, you'll be able to push yourself farther and farther. As you progress deeper into the Sanctum, you'll find a variety of treasures that will help you eventually fight your way to the dangers that await you at the end of its 4 floors. Eventually, by endgame, you may be able to push through all 4 floors to face the final boss. Every roguelike needs a resource to help you track how well the run is going. In the Forbidden Sanctum, it is your resolve, indicated by this bar here. As you explore the Sanctum, your resolve is threatened by the dangers within. When you lose all of your resolve, your Sanctum run ends. Your level of resolve is maintained between consecutive rooms on your run, but is only shown when you're in the Sanctum itself. The resolve mechanic applies equally to all build archetypes. Your resolve is reduced when you are hit by monsters or environmental hazards in the Sanctum, and these telegraphed attacks are not affected by regular Path of Exile defensive mechanics, such as evasion, armor, or block. While these attacks do some nominal damage to your regular life, the bulk of their impact is against your resolve. This mechanic provides a mechanism for tracking your progress between rooms, where your regular life pool would long ago have been recovered. Another aspect of the resolve system is that characters who are struggling can be ejected from the Sanctum without actually having to die, avoiding experience loss or hardcore death. So maintaining a healthy level of resolve is key as you navigate the Sanctum, and that means making careful choices of what rooms you enter. Let's have a look at some of the things that Sanctum rooms can contain. Afflicted rooms cause you to gain an affliction when you enter them. Afflictions make your Sanctum run more difficult, for example, reducing your resolve recovery, causing rewards to become hidden on the Sanctum map, or causing Sanctum rooms to spawn volatile anomalies that follow you. These minor afflictions accumulate as you get deeper and deeper into a run, making it more challenging. Major afflictions exist and are a big deal. They have significant consequences, such as entirely preventing the recovery of resolve. So, a Sanctum run gets harder and harder as you pick up more afflictions. Sounds great. But every roguelike needs a way for you to gain power throughout your run. In the Forbidden Sanctum, that system is boons. Boons are beneficial buffs that help you as you progress through the Sanctum. Minor boons make things a little easier, such as slowing down monsters or adding a special shield to your resolve called Inspiration. Major boons don't come along often, but have large effects, such as preventing you from receiving more minor afflictions, or recovering your resolve to 50% the next time you run out. Due to the vast variety of afflictions and boons, no 2 runs are the same. Generally speaking, your best Sanctum runs are the ones where the afflictions you choose have little effect on you, and the boons either counteract them or have a large benefit for the strategy you're running. Some rooms in the Sanctum contain a fountain which will restore some of your lost resolve. Others contain afflicted fountains that restore even more resolve at a cost. Rooms with a treasure reward contain chests full of the Templar Aureus currency, a type of gold coin they used for commerce within their Sanctum. You'll also find some Aureus coins from monsters that you kill as you explore. These are picked up automatically, like Azurite, and are not tradable. and like your afflictions and boons, are lost when your Sanctum run ends. Some rooms contain a merchant who accepts your Aureus coins in exchange for boons. Plan your purchases carefully, as you may encounter the merchant again later on with even more expensive boons to purchase. Occasionally, the sinister powers controlling the Sanctum will present you with the choice of making an accursed pact. You are given several pacts to choose from and can even opt to take all that you are offered. All pacts have a big upside and a big downside, such as exchanging a portion of your maximum resolve for a random major boon. It's very dangerous to make a pact, but if you pick the right circumstances, your gamble could pay off. In addition to rewards that help you progress through the Sanctum, many rooms let you immediately receive Path of Exile currency items, but with a twist. Whenever you're offered some currency items that you can receive right away, you are also offered a more valuable option that will be waiting for you after the boss fight at the end of the current floor of the Sanctum. It's a gamble, because if you fail your run before you reach and defeat the boss, you will not receive the reward you picked. Later on, you're offered the extreme temptation of getting a massive currency reward that is conditional on completing your entire Sanctum run without failing. At a specific point in the Forbidden Sanctum storyline, you'll discover a special altar that Templar relics can be placed on. These relics directly affect your Sanctum runs and are not lost when a run ends. They persist throughout the League as a permanent source of meta progression. Acquiring new and better relics is one of the ways you can push farther and farther with each run you try. Relics cannot be crafted and cannot be traded, as they represent your personal progression throughout the League. You'll accumulate more than you can use simultaneously, so you'll have options to fine-tune your strategy from run to run. You can store your extra relics in the Relic Locker, a free storage space like the Expedition Locker. We don't want to spoil important story details, but the end boss of the Forbidden Sanctum can drop unique items from a pool exclusive to this League. Today we'd like to show you a unique amulet called Eternal Damnation. This amulet offers a powerful way to gain additional elemental mitigation by introducing the concept of elemental damage reduction. Despite the drawback of reducing your maximum resistances, if you have sufficient chaos resistance, this is more than compensated for. Because of the roguelike nature of the Forbidden Sanctum, defeating the boss of a floor is a difficult achievement and hence rewards a lot of experience. You may fail on the way, so if you do manage it, expect a good experience boost for your achievement. Another reward you can find is a special type of relic called a Sanctified Relic that has mods that directly affect your character's build. You can only unlock one slot for this type of relic, and while these relics can't be crafted through conventional means, you may find special reward rooms in the Sanctum that can modify them. These relics exist for this League only and provide a boost to character power for players who are able to master the Sanctum. The Sanctum League offers a roguelike experience that tempts you into taking risks and rewards you if those pay off. There's a lot to explore in the Sanctum, and we can't wait to hear about your experiences next week. In each expansion leading up to Path of Exile 2's release, we're improving Path of Exile's endgame, with new content to explore and improvements to how you customize your endgame experience. In the Forbidden Sanctum expansion, we're revamping the Atlas tree, reworking how Eldritch Altars function, and are introducing 2 new Atlas memories. The Atlas tree is generally working really well, but has a few problems we'd like to address. The tree offers you the ability to specialize in killing pinnacle bosses, providing extra rewards when you do so. While this sounds good on paper, it creates a situation where you're incentivized to specialize your tree for regular mapping, save up all of your boss fights, then respec fully into boss mode, and then do all of your saved up boss fights before speccing back again. Ideally, the design of the Atlas tree would let you spec into one build and then just play the game. We have removed all boss bonuses from the Atlas tree, and have baked some of them into the actual base properties of the boss fights. For example, you don't need to allocate the Gaze into the Abyss notable that makes the Elder more likely to drop a Watcher's Eye, as he just has that drop chance built in now. The Atlas tree is now focused on allowing you to specialize into content that you encounter in every map. We also want you to be able to specialize into your favorite leagues even more deeply on the Atlas tree. For each of the 10 leagues that the tree lets you disable, we've added a bunch more passives to the tree. These new passives allow you to increase the league spawn chance to much higher levels than currently possible and juice the league even further than before. We are making a number of changes to Eldritch Altars that mostly affect their rewards, but will also affect gameplay decisions you make involving them. Some of the key changes include splitting up the basic currency, Scarab, and Divination card rewards to be explicit in their description of what rewards you'll get. For example, instead of map bosses dropping 3 unknown basic currency items, the altar specifically says which currency item they'll drop. As part of this change, we've removed some of the lower value yet quite common currency rewards from the pool, such as Orbs of Augmentation and Orbs of Transmutation. Speaking of scarabs, these will be less available from altars, but we've improved their availability elsewhere to offset this. Rusted scarabs can now drop from the core drop pool, and we've added a vendor recipe that allows you to upgrade your scarabs up to gilded using the normal 3:1 ratio. You can also perform this action from your fragment tab using the new upgrade button. We have made reward types exclusive to different influences, so that you know which influence type to invest in if you want to target farm a certain reward. To give you a specific example, if you run maps influenced by, say, Eater of Worlds, you'll see Divine Orbs from the basic currency reward more than twice as often as before. We've also rebalanced rewards so that choices that affect boss drops or influence monster drops are comparatively more valuable. The Wrath of the Cosmos keystone has been reworked. Previously, it was so rewarding that players felt obligated to use it despite its extreme level of difficulty. It has retained the risk versus reward element, but with the overall intensity toned down. You can now also get awakened gems from defeating Maven Witness map bosses. This additional reward helps further balance the expected returns from the various types of influence. For more detail on these changes, check out the Balance Manifesto we posted last week, or the upcoming patch notes. In the Lake of Calandra expansion, we introduced Atlas Memories. When applied to your Atlas, they unlock a sequence of maps that tells the story of an NPC's past. These stories manifest as specialized encounters that involve a new challenge and exciting rewards. In this expansion, we've introduced 2 new Atlas Memories, describing events related to bestiary and domination. The bestiary memory line allows you to capture harvest monsters as beasts for your menagerie. These harvest beasts can be used in 9 new beast crafting recipes. These recipes cover an array of options. For example, you can remove one of the special modifiers from a Watcher's Eye Jewel and then add another. This can have potent results, but won't affect the life, mana, or energy shield modifiers. You can re-roll an awakened gem from one type to another. Another example is that you can also re-roll a synthesis implicit modifier. If your item has more than one synthesis implicit, it will randomly re-roll one of them. The Domination Atlas memory thrusts you into a tale of pantheon gods that stand watch over their shrines. Like regular shrines, these are guarded by monsters and emit a buff that empowers the monsters until you claim that buff for yourself. This Atlas memory introduces a new set of shrines with specialized buffs, guarded by rare monsters that drop tantalizing rewards. The Forbidden Sanctum expansion introduces a new type of shard that can drop from Harbingers, Fracturing Shards. When combined together into a full currency item, you get the Fracturing Orb, which behaves the same as the Fracturing Craft from Harvest. It can be used on any rare item with at least 4 modifiers. When the orb is applied, it locks one of the modifiers in place so that further crafting efforts do not affect that modifier. Items fractured in this way can only have one fractured modifier. Previously, this crafting option was gated behind the Oshabi fight in Harvest. Now that it has been rehomed to Harbinger, the Harvest crafting option is no longer available. This means that you'll be able to use your Harvest Life Force and Oshabi kills on other crafts. Because Fracturing Shards drop from Harbingers, you'll be able to target farm them by speccing into Harbinger content on your Atlas tree. The Forbidden Sanctum expansion introduces a number of new skill gems. In addition to some new melee Val skills we'll discuss later in the livestream, there are 2 totally new skills that we'd like to unveil today. Volcanic Fissure is a new fiery slam skill that can be used with staves, maces, axes, and unarmed attacks. Strike the ground to create a chasm that winds towards your target. This chasm can path around corners before erupting as the fissure gets as close as it can reach. It releases a burst of fiery projectiles that explode on striking the ground. Enemies hit by multiple impacts will take a lot of stacked damage. Use it up close for reliable bursts of damage, or aim far away to damage a larger area. Frozen Legion is an unusual spell, summoning a ring of icy statues that attack with your own weapon damage. This skill has multiple cooldown stacks and consumes all cooldown uses at once to summon a statue for each available cooldown. The statues perform a sweeping ice slash, and these sweeps can overlap, resulting in multiple hits against targets close to you. This spell can be used with staves, maces, and axes. The skill is particularly powerful with slow, heavy weapons, as while the statues will use your attack speed, you should instead prioritize the spell's own cast time and cooldown. This expansion also introduces many new Val melee skills. As you know, equipping a Val skill gem grants you both the Val and regular version of the skill. As you kill enemies, the gem charges up with their souls, and after a certain number are collected, the Val skill can be used once. Most of the new Val skills introduced in this expansion are melee skills, and this results in an indirect buff to any melee builds that use one of these skills. Where previously you'd just be using your melee skill to kill enemies, you now get to periodically use a super-powered version of the skill. If you like Flicker Strike, you'll love Val Flicker Strike, as it really dials up the concept of letting fate take the wheel. Val Flicker Strike causes you to flicker dozens of extra times, slashing enemies. During this time, you don't deal any damage to the enemies you slash. You're quite vulnerable due to not leeching or generating fortify stacks. When you finish flickering, if you survived of course, you'll be rewarded with a single huge hit of damage against each enemy you slashed. Val Cleave is a new Val skill that buffs the behavior as a non-Val version, in a similar way to how Val Reeve works. Val Cleave triggers 2 buffs, one when you kill a rare enemy, and one when you kill either a rare or unique enemy. The latter is a strong buff to regular Cleave, which you can keep up almost permanently if you're able to kill rare or unique enemies often enough. The bonus for killing a rare enemy is that you get to steal its mods for a time. You can enjoy part of the power of having a headhunter without actually needing to find one. Overall, Val Cleave is a pretty powerful upgrade to any melee build that could run Cleave. That +2 radius buff is looking pretty good now, right? Don't hurt me. We'll showcase the other new Val skills we're introducing over the coming week. The Forbidden Sanctum expansion introduces over 15 new unique items, from Sanctum exclusive uniques to ones that can be found from Path of Exile's pinnacle bosses. I'd like to show you 3 examples of these, designed by winners of our prior league's boss kill races. Progenesis is a unique amethyst flask that was designed by Ben and drops from the Uber Maven. It's a defensive flask that grants a mini version of the Petrified Blood effect, but without requiring you to be on low life. This is a useful tool to prevent you getting one-shot by large amounts of incoming damage in scary situations. Rational Doctrine is a unique jewel that was designed by Rawlings and drops from Uber Venarius. By manipulating your attributes, you can change how this jewel behaves. While the ideal dream outcome is that you manage to get your strength and intelligence tied for highest, enabling both of the benefits simultaneously, the jewel is still very powerful if it only grants your choice of permanent consecrated ground or permanent profane ground. Entropic Devastation is a pair of unique gloves that were designed by Gucci Pradas and dropped from the Uber Shaper. Currently, the ways to get Spell Impale are very limited. These gloves provide the powerful property of causing all of your spells to impale on crit. So let's talk about unique weapons, specifically endgame unique weapons. In many ways, the weapon is the most iconic and important item on a character, so it's very important that we make them exciting and worthy of their unique status. While some unique weapons have special properties that enable entirely new builds, others are best compared to powerful rare items as a primary source of your character's damage. We have to be very careful when pitching the power level of these unique weapons. If they're not powerful enough, then they're useless and are ignored, but if they're too powerful, then they discourage entire archetypes of characters from trying to find or craft rare weapons. Interestingly, the above problem doesn't apply to belts. Despite Mageblood and Headhunter both existing as extremely powerful unique items, people still craft plenty of rare belts. That's because Mageblood and Headhunter are extremely rare, and people don't actually expect they'll reliably get one in a league. Players tend to treat them as luxury upgrades to their build, rather than something they're certain to get. In this expansion, we're promoting 10 iconic but underused unique weapons to the same tier of rarity as Mageblood and Headhunter. We are buffing them a gigantic amount and are making them incredibly hard to find. Remember when Starforge used to be an exciting item? Well, after this change, it certainly is again. It still drops exclusively from the Shaper and the Uber Shaper, but it'll take a lot of runs or a lot of luck to earn it. Over the next week, we'll reveal the other unique weapons that have been massively buffed. We have targeted around 10 iconic underused unique weapons and have generally buffed only their damage stat, but by a lot. We've made a number of changes to jewels that are covered in a recent balance manifesto, but in case you missed it, we want to quickly summarize what the changes are. In the Forbidden Sanctum expansion, we have made jewels a better source of ailment mitigation by buffing the values of ailment-focused jewel modifiers and adding new modifiers that enable mitigation to a wider variety of ailments than before. We have also removed some ailment mitigation modifiers that were only available on jewels through corruption, because there are now better options through the regular jewel mod pool. This also means that other desirable corruption modifiers, like immunity to corrupting blood, are more likely to roll. We want the moment of finding a unique jewel to be way more exciting than it currently is. We've added a handful of new, very powerful unique jewels and have removed some old, less interesting ones. An example of one of these new unique jewels is Fire Song, which propagates any modifiers to your ignite mitigation to other elemental ailments. If you're able to substantially reduce the duration of ignites on you, then you can use Fire Song to basically shrug off any elemental ailment. For full information about the other changes to unique jewels, check out the Balance Manifesto post we made recently.
для урона там только.
We've rebalanced curses to make them stronger where they matter most against unique monsters and pinnacle bosses. We have buffed several hex-related unique items and reworked unique items that previously interacted with Doom. To replace the Doomsday Keystone passive, we have brought back a version of an iconic curse-related keystone from the past. We've introduced some powerful new unique items that interact with hexes, which we'll reveal in the lead up to launch. For more details on changes to curses, check out the Balance Manifesto we posted recently, or the patch notes that will come out after the livestream concludes. When we first created the Arch-Nemesis monster mod system, our goal was to improve Path of Exile's outdated set of monster mods with new and interesting mechanics that have modern game balance. We feel that Arch-Nemesis did introduce a lot of interesting mechanics, but it unfortunately had several of its own problems. We have replaced Arch-Nemesis with a system that is more similar to the way monster mods worked in the past. The new monster mods are a lot simpler. They now each do one thing and very clearly state what they do. Each encounter with a rare monster is now less complex and is easier to understand in the heat of combat compared to Arch-Nemesis. You'll still encounter challenging combinations of mods from time to time, but this emergent synergy will be rarer than it was under Arch-Nemesis. The goal is that combat is interesting and varied, with moments that get your heart racing, but without the frustrations of the Arch-Nemesis system. Let's talk about rewards. Under Arch-Nemesis, it often felt mandatory to bring in a magic find culling character to kill some monsters for you in order to maximize your rewards. In the new system, we've added a significant pool of new rewards to rares, but the reward that is on the monster is hidden and not associated with a specific mod, so you don't know what kind of rewards you will get until you kill the monster. Rare monsters with more mods are more likely to have these special hidden reward bonuses. To find out more about other balance changes that are taking place in the Forbidden Sanctum, check out the patch notes, which will be available when the livestream ends. Over the last year or so, some of our senior developers have been tinkering with a more challenging way to play Path of Exile. We've been publicly alpha testing this mode, known as Ruthless, for the last month, and are planning to make it available to anyone who's interested alongside the launch of the Forbidden Sanctum next week. Ruthless is an optional additional character flag, like Hardcore or Solo Self-Found, that completely changes how Path of Exile feels to play. Ruthless is a lot more difficult than regular Path of Exile, but it doesn't achieve this by making the monsters harder to kill. It instead focuses on reducing character power through extreme item scarcity, limited crafting, and many other changes such as support gems being drop only. We've posted an article about the philosophy and rules of Ruthless on pathofexile.com/ruthless. We plan to release this mode alongside the Forbidden Sanctum expansion in a week. In addition to being a character flag like Hardcore or Solo Self-Found, it's also available as a modifier for private leagues. To be clear, the Forbidden Sanctum League content can be played in Ruthless with appropriately balanced rewards. Ruthless is still very experimental during 320, and we won't be afraid to make mid-league balance changes to it during this experimental phase. Ruthless is not for everyone, but so far it has found a supportive and growing group of players who enjoy the additional challenge that it brings. If it sounds like something you're interested in, then try it out next time you're looking for a new way to enjoy Path of Exile. This expansion also contains a number of small quality of life improvements. Some examples are, Divine Vessels can now be used by right-clicking them rather than taking them to Sin. On the player overhead life bar, the energy shield bar is split into a separate bar. You can now right-click an itemized Temple of Atsuatl to see its layout. And most importantly, beast crafting recipes that add mods to flasks now actually say what the mods do. We'll post more information about these and other quality of life improvements in the lead up to release. Today we're launching two new series of supporter packs, the Forge and Gemling packs. Each tier contains the pack's full face value and points, plus several exclusive microtransactions. These packs will only be available for the duration of the Sanctum Challenge League and will leave the store forever in 3 months. As always, these microtransactions are entirely cosmetic and do not affect your character's progression or power. The Forge series of supporter packs contains 6 exclusive microtransactions. The Clockwork back attachment ramps up as you build a kill streak, building pressure and releasing it when your streak ends. The Delirious Hideout decoration lets you summon delirium fog in your hideout at will, complete with strange voices and terrifying apparitions.
Feeling okay?
А то в игре мало делириума, его еще чтобы в убежке распространять.
The Forge Guard armor set summons a hammer and anvil so that everyone nearby can watch you craft. The ethereal fusing effect turns your item linking attempts into a spectator sport. If you manage to hit a 6 link, people watching are even prompted to send a congratulatory message.
Отлично. Все классно, конечно, но что-то за бабки, ну нафиг.
Summoning the Crow Storm portal effect causes a murder of crows to erupt from the portal. The portal becomes dormant if you are too far away from it, causing the crows to take to the skies. The High Templar weapon effect smites the undead you fight and scours the souls of those you put to rest. The Gemling Pack series also has 6 exclusive microtransactions. The Beehive weapon effect lets your weapon play host to a swarm of angry bees, which erupt from the hive whenever you hit an enemy with the weapon. Critical hits cause the hive to send out its best warriors. The Stampede Quicksilver Flask makes you the leader of your own personal rower herd. Activating the flask causes a host of ghostly rowers to charge alongside you.
Блин,
This
сколько
is the
они сил
Gemling
тратят
Artificer
на
armor
эту
set.
рисовалку.
It is inlaid with gems that match the gems you've socketed in your items. Crafting gems with gem cutters prisms, Val orbs, or regrading lenses visualizes the process for all to see. This armor set also includes alternate gem level up effects. Prospero's ring blesses you with a constant shower of coins, and it helps you thank players you've traded with through a hearty fist bump. The consuming ooze pet bounces alongside you and devours corpses in your wake, spitting out a tidy pile of bones. Finally, this pack allows you to reunite with Kadiro Perandus, inviting him to your hideout as a vendor. In addition to buying items from you and using his connections to accept your divination cards, he'll provide commentary on your goods, equipment, and anything else he sees fit to judge you for.
That might be a little too much to drink, even for me.
Kadiro has hundreds of lines of voice acting.
Про проклятие вроде все сказали.
Oh, a mighty
Оккультист тоже уже все
I'm
написано. Чё
so impressed.
сломали
Try to
оккультиста.
duck when the brain fragments splatter everywhere. You wouldn't want to
Проклятие теперь надо
sully your
ручками
armor.
кастовать.
These new packs are available right now at pathofexile.com/purchase. Purchases like these directly fund the ongoing development of Path of Exile 1 and 2, and we really appreciate your support. Meanwhile, the Knight and Rogue packs leave the store forever in 1 week, so now's your last chance to purchase them. The Calandra edition of Kyric's Vault Pass is only available until the end of the Calandra League, and will be replaced with a new set of unique items when the Forbidden Sanctum launches. By the way, we're hoping to film Season 11 of Build of the Week once the Forbidden Sanctum comes out. If you want to submit your build for the season, share your build guide on the class forums on pathofexile.com. Next up, we've got the Q&A with Ziggy D. Once that ends, we'll post the full patch notes for the Forbidden Sanctum. Over the next week, our community team will post the expansion's challenge rewards, information on how to update your item filters, all new and changed gems, and information on how to prepare for launch. On launch weekend, we expect to release the new mystery box, and we'll follow up with the new Kyric's Vault Pass in the days after launch. Thanks for joining us and checking out the Forbidden Sanctum. We can't wait to join you in Rayclast on December 9th. We'll begin the Q&A shortly, so please get your questions ready in chat.
Ну, в общем и целом, конечно, ничего. Но, правда, я говорю, Каландра тоже была ничего. В итоге, конечно... дала жару. Ну это к тому же он же, как обычно, еще не все сказал. В патчноутах еще дофига чего-нибудь там зарядят порезанного. Тихоря, типа, может, никто не заметит.
Good morning, Exiles, and welcome back for another Q&A session with none other than Chris Wilson. Good morning, Chris. Thank you for joining us once again.
Oh, thanks for being here as well.
I'm very keen to jump into chatting about Forbidden Sanctum straight away, but as always, you folks can put your questions in the chat, and our helpful team of moderators will pull some out for us to answer. So, Path of Exile gets to be so many things. It has gotten to be so many things over the years. Do you ever really feel like you just don't need to make another game in any other genre because you can just make a league that is that genre? Like make a farming league or a city building league or a roguelike league?
I guess it's one perk of the job, but we always try to make sure that when we're designing our leagues, they're games that fit within the idea of being an action RPG. Like they have to involve you killing monsters and finding items in order to fit within Path of Exile.
Yeah, so even when you're farming, you're killing monsters, or even when you're fishing, you're killing monsters. I look
Yeah,
forward to
there's
the
a
one where we pull
bit of an
monsters out of the
agenda
water.
there, Ziggy.
I was planning on pushing the fishing angle.
So that's when you get on the boat and have your fishing league, right?
And you like pull monsters out of the water, right? Like giant fish that you then battle with as they flop around on the deck. That makes sense.
Interesting. That one's under NDA. Sorry.
Oh, I'm in trouble. How do you gain access to the new Forbidden Sanctum?
Надо понимать,
So
что
basically,
Зигги
every area you're
американец.
playing in has a portal that gives you access to it. It basically
Ну
takes
вот
you to the next
уже
room that you're playing in the Sanctum in your
весьма
current run.
специфический английский.
Okay. So to clarify, then the Sanctum's divided into rooms, each with their own encounter, and then floors with a boss at the end of each. And then there's the whole Sanctum itself, which is multiple floors.
That's right. So the Sanctum itself has 4 floors, each one guarded by a boss at the end, with the ultimate boss fight at the end of the 4th floor. And each of the floors has 8 rooms, and so a maximum length Sanctum run would be 32 consecutive rooms, which you'd play out over potentially 32 maps. But it's worth emphasizing that, as with most roguelikes, you don't just install it and then happily play through to the end in one go. It's something that you get further and further with each run as you get better meta progression, as you learn more about it, and as you have good versus bad runs.
I presume it like level scales to the character kind of as you're leveling still, as per
Yes.
regular leagues. Is
Mhm.
there any potential, do you think, that someone who's like quite good at the game maybe gets through on their first try, or is this quite definitely you're gonna have to make it a bit further each time?
We never underestimate the players, right? Like we
Yeah.
will try as hard as we can to achieve something, and then players will just blow right past that because there are millions of them and they're pretty damn good at the game. So I don't want to make any promises there, but it certainly is the case that in order to get really deep into the Sanctum, you have to know a lot about it. You have to have some experience with it. You have to ideally have a good character with a capable build. You'd ideally have a good setup of your relics, which are the meta progression. To get to the deeper floors, it certainly requires that you've assembled relics that fit with your strategy. And it also helps to be having a good run. I can't emphasize that enough. It's very roguelike, where you're picking up these random boons, these random afflictions. And if you get the bad afflictions on you early on, that run is not going to last long. If you get a really good set of boons, you could have a really deep run, much further than you otherwise would at your current level.
This is so you mentioned like 30 something rooms. That's like the biggest thing we've had by a pretty substantial margin, because even building the temple was around 11 maps to build a full temple and then run that. And that was like, that's a pretty sizable thing. So this is a lot bigger than that then.
That's correct, but a lot of the rewards you're getting along the way, and so it's entirely fine to play the Sanctum a few floors in and then fail and play again, and it's still a rewarding experience, assuming you don't gamble on pushing the rewards right to the end of the entire Sanctum run. But it's unlikely you're going to choose to do that until you are really confident in your ability to do this run particularly well.
Yeah, so I saw the reward options are like take a tiny reward now, take a decent reward at the end of the floor. So you're like, oh, I can make it 3 or 4 more rooms. And then there's the really big one at the end as well. And there's
Yes.
stack, right, if you get a bunch of them.
That's right, and it was kind of funny because in the live stream I said this is a massive reward, and we're showing like a few Chaos Orbs as the reward. So of course, chat memed that as much as they could. The thing is, okay, so let's do some math here, right? It's 32 rooms in a Sanctum run, and deferrals make up something like 40%. Deferral is what I'm internally calling the offer reward here. It makes up around 40% of the rooms. And so if you're offered an average of a whole bunch of Chaos Orbs, I think the example there had like 18, but obviously the currency numbers will vary a lot, and you were to defer those entirely to the end of the Sanctum run, you would be getting hundreds of currency, and it can have divines, mirrors, and various other stuff in there moderately rarely. So it's entirely possible that were you to defer everything to the end in a big gamble, you could receive a very, very large payout. Now, of course, deferring it to the end of the Sanctum is a crazy strategy. We don't recommend that. It will end in tears. Only do this if you're confident in this run. It's set up so that the rewards for immediately taking them are still worthwhile. If you play the Sanctum and just took the reward immediately, it's a decent amount of currency that makes it worthwhile on top of the other rewards you're getting. But there's always the temptation of the end of the floor. The floor one is the one that's juiced a little bit. Of course, in later floors, the end of the Sanctum doesn't look very far away. And if you know you're having a good run, you've got confidence, then why not take the extra reward by doing the big gamble?
This deferral mechanic is super interesting, actually, because you've designed leagues where you get like some reward immediately, and then you've designed leagues where you do like a lot of content and then get a ton of rewards all at once. So this allows players to have control over that mechanic and make that decision for themselves. But have you like kind of... Yeah, sorry.
I was just going to say, this is because roguelikes have good runs and bad runs. If you're having a bad run, take the rewards
Right.
now and get as far as you can. If you're having a great run, that gives you the ability to make an ultimatum-like gamble.
Yeah, right. You can make those strategic decisions kind of based on like, this has been a brutal slog. I am no way am I getting through this. I'm gonna check out now. Got it. Makes sense. Have you thought about like the player mindset of just like, I always gonna take the big one? Because I look at it and I'm like, I'm always gonna take the one, and I'm the biggest one. I'm never gonna get it because I'm always gonna die.
Obviously, players want to min-max stuff. They want to get the best result, but the best result may pragmatically say, I'm going to take this reward that's in a shorter time frame. Plus, okay, so anyone who's done economics or finance understands the concept of the time value of money. $1 now is worth more than $1 later because you can put it to use right now. And when these full Sanctum runs taking 30 maps, maybe getting a pile of Chaoses, potentially some higher currency like Exalts and Divines, a few maps from now is actually better for your character development than getting a very large pile in 20 maps. Maybe, especially when there's a conditional element to that. It may be that getting something a few maps from now that you can then trade to get more progression is actually better for you. So there are a lot of hard decisions which we put on the table here for the players.
Damn, I'm gonna have to dig out my old economics textbooks. Okay.
Excel, right?
Yeah, now you're speaking our
Блин,
language.
а продавать-то их
Let's
нельзя
talk the
будет, как
resolve mechanic. So to clarify,
Айдиора.
resolve is an independent health bar for the
Yes.
Forbidden Sanctum specifically, and when your resolve runs out, you're kicked out of the Sanctum, dead or not, right?
That's correct. Now, I noticed the reaction when we're announcing the resolve system there, as a lot of players said, why? As though this is a negative thing, but I want to have a chance to explain it. So we tried very hard initially to work out a system here that works with your player life. Then there's no additional bars. The problem is, though, Path of Exile's player life fluctuates up and down rapidly. You're constantly healing yourself. You've got recovery. There's no persistence to this. Your player life is like how out of breath you are, if you see what I mean. It's a very brief, it's almost like your heartbeat to some extent. And so if we were to say, look, if you lose some life in this room, then when you come back into the next room, that life is going to be missing. So you've got a kind of a progression through the Sanctum. Then they just press 1 and heal themselves fully and carry on playing. And so our experiments where there's no meta progression in it do not function as a roguelike. There has to be a thing where you get worn down. Having said that, half of the plan here, half of the strategy you have to do in your Sanctum is work out how you are recovering your resolve. And there are lots of different ways. It's along the lines, I mean, it's as simple as if your resolve is lower than you'd like because the Sanctum one is one you're struggling with, then you have to start pathing through various things like fountains or choosing boons which enable more resolve recovery. And every time you have to choose something focusing on resolve recovery,
Чё-то,
you're implicitly
короче,
losing some
много
other
всего
thing you could be getting,
напридумывали.
like more rewards or a different
От
axis of power.
сложного, точнее, от
And so
легкого к
the degree
сложному,
to which you're
куча
struggling with
бафов
the run forces you to focus on
и
staying alive and not
усложнений,
getting
но
rewards.
сдается
But
мне,
conversely,
как
this means if you're
обычно.
having a good run where you were not struggling at all, you can just
Одна-две,
kind of
максимум
ignore your
3
resolve and focus on becoming super powerful.
выигрышных
And
стратегий,
this
которые
works really well
найдут
as
и
a
все будут
roguelike, and I
ими
would really
пользоваться.
encourage people to try it out before judging it based on the fact that it's an additional life bar. We don't add those kind of things, for no reason. And it means as well that you don't have as much pressure on your actual player life. And it's very interesting how build agnostic this is, because it creates a situation where different Path of Exile players can experience the Sanctum in similar ways, despite the fact their builds play quite differently.
This is why this Q&A is super good to do, because you get a chance to explain this, like how you arrived at this design decision that you can't really do in the reveal, because it would
Yeah, it would
bog
take a
down
while.
the reveal for like 10 minutes. So that's super interesting. You actually touched on a topic I wanted to ask. So Resolve seems to reward high mobility play styles that can completely avoid attacks. So since mitigation doesn't affect resolve damage, how does it feel playing like a low mobility tanky melee character in the Sanctum when you kind of just be failing runs due to chip damage that otherwise is not a threat to you?
We thought of that. So we've made it so that the resolve damage is lower if you're close to a target. Essentially, if you're melee and you're right in their face, then you take less resolve damage than if you're further away. And so attacks are also very telegraphed. And that means that even if you're a tanky melee character, you have an opportunity to get out of the way. You probably should consider at least a Quicksilver Flask if you're going into the Sanctum so that you have some ability to respond to stuff, but that's normal Path of Exile play. Even in Ruthless, where there's significantly less mobility skills, Quicksilver Flasks still exist. The other thing is, if your build is one where you're expecting to take a lot of resolve damage, just spec your relics into resolve recovery. Relics are your meta progression that you can choose. They're locked in for the Sanctum run, and you keep them between runs. So if you feel that you want more resolve recovery, get relics that do that. And if you're a character that's given up mobility, has some ability at the expense of maybe less damage or less tankiness or something, then there are other things they can specialize their relics into if they have enough resolve.
That taking less damage at close range thing is super interesting.
Короче,
Is that like kind of
алтарями подкручиваете
a
билд.
fast shot mechanic applied to projectile attacks or something?
It's like
Не
that for all of
знаю.
the resolve stuff, and this
Что-то мне
is
уже не
something
нравится
that
это.
we've realized is necessary because the melee and tanky characters get up close, and so it's better for that to be balanced around it.
All right, cool. And just to clarify for people, if you are playing hardcore, this means you can fail the sanctum without dying. So I was like, I thought people
That's
would play
correct.
hardcore league.
Right. The intention of the Forbidden Sanctum is that you will fail your sanctum many, many times on the path to finding all of the good stuff in it. And so if that meant the hardcore character was dead and had to start again, it just wouldn't be a hardcore compatible league. And
Yep.
so a side effect of Resolve is that hardcore characters can actually engage with it without putting themselves in mortal danger. It also means, of course, with the way that experience penalties work, high-level characters can play without putting their current experience so much on the line. I mean, it's still very... I mean, I've died in the Sanctum numerous occasions with legitimate player life deaths because I was careless, but
Mm.
it's certainly easier from a player life point of
Ой, у
view
меня 2
than, say,
Криса.
high-level mapping is.
Well,
Беда.
that kind of speaks to the concept of Resolve as a whole. It's Resolve is about how well you've
Матрица
done over the
сбоит.
course of the entire dungeon, whereas your health is how well you've done in this specific engagement, which is
Yeah.
an interesting kind of like two-faceted approach that we don't normally have in Path of Exile. Like if
That's
you do bad
correct.
at the start of a map, it doesn't matter. It doesn't affect the rest of the map, right?
Yeah, and it's also meant that if we want something to be dangerous, we up the resolve a bit, we don't up its damage, threatening the actual characters.
Interesting. Cool. All right. So to clarify on the sanctified relics, these are the
Mhm.
ones where the effects work on your character outside of the sanctum.
That's correct, yeah, both inside and outside. So these are a permanent power progression for characters. They're hard to get, they're very end game, we're talking late maps here, and they're obviously due to the fact that they can't be crafted and can't be traded, means that you are very limited in how many of these you get access to, but they are very powerful. And because of the fact that they can't be crafted or traded, we've made sure to juice the mods on them and make sure it's not watered down. These are relics which will significantly affect the character power of your build. Now, they are shared among all the characters on your account, or meaning you can equip, from the same pool. So it does mean that if you find one for one character and you want to use it on a different build, it's entirely possible too.
Very cool. How does the sanctum work in a party then?
Okay. Got a bunch of rules here. Short answer is, as with all recent leagues, we want party play to work, but we also want it so that people don't feel encouraged to cheese things through party play. And so the philosophy basically is, like, one of the problems with Arch Nemesis with the whole culling situation is that players realize when they find a certain monster that, oh, I now have to engage with other humans in order to get maximum result here. And we want Sanctum to work in a party without creating the feeling that you have to engage with humans in order to get the best out of your Sanctum. It shouldn't feel like you only want to go in there when you have a whole bunch of friends who are online at the same time. So we've come up with rules that enable you to play as a party, and certainly there are some benefits for doing so, but there is also some liability to it. And so the way it works is the sanctum is always that of the map owner. The person who created the map is the one whose sanctum you are playing. So if Ziggy and I are playing and we're doing Ziggy's sanctum, he's the one getting the progress for that. I'm there to help, and afterwards it would be nice if he reciprocated and we did my sanctum as well, but it's primarily your one that's progressing. And so this means that you are the one who makes the choices about stuff. This is the one, it's your relics matter there. We're using your gold, your boons, your afflictions, and your resolve bar. That's the important thing to note. If you
Так, ну
invite
ладно.
other party members
Короче,
into your sanctum with you, they don't just get a free ability to have their own resolve bar, which doesn't...
это все лирика. Ладно. Понятно, что ничего не понятно. Ждем патчноута и будем готовить стартеров. А это все разговор ни о чем. В прошлый раз он тоже рассказывал. А в итоге все было по-другому. Ладно. Всем спасибо за совместное проведенное время за просмотром. Всего чуда. Не теряйтесь. Скоро начнем. Всем пока.